Welcome to the Elevated Trader Podcast. I am Dr. Kristin Kidgel.
And I am Tracy Ball. Join us every week as we journey into becoming better traders.
We believe becoming better traders involves elevating our skill, mindset, and our health. In each episode, we will discuss the current book we are exploring, and we invite you to join us on this journey.
Are you ready to elevate your trading, mindset, and health to the next level? Let's do this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Elevated Trader Podcast. We are on episode 3 of the book Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. So you ready to jump in? Let's give it to him again on this stuff.
Yeah, you bet. Bring it.
Drinking out of a freaking fire hose around here, I swear. Okay, we're both kind of pumped about this because this is a big background in my life, and Tracy's like loving this book, and I'm really happy because I just didn't know if she was going to like it or not, and I really liked it the first time I read it. And there's a little stigmatism around it because it's, or stigma, whatever word, there's a little stigma around it that because it's old. It's an old book. I mean, these books have been out for a while. She's reading part 1, I'm reading part 2. So let's jump right in. I want to just prepare people for something that I have asked Tracy to read to you. It is a part of the book, and it really makes very important on why we should be more conscious and present with our food choices, because food is literally just energy and the nutrients for our cells to run our body. And it's even better when the food tastes good, right? But when it tastes good and it doesn't serve us, that's where the issues start. So having it taste good and at the same time knowing that it's serving ourselves, it's serving our body, it's serving our heart, it's serving us to maintain and be better, and whatever those goals are, I think is crucial and critical. So jump in. You got to give it to them. Everybody's ready now.
Yeah, I got to say I had this whole thing highlighted. It's a little long, but we'll get into it. And I'll respond how I felt after.
Okay.
So the human body has to be nature's finest creation. It is unmatched in power, capacity, and adaptability. The intelligence inherent in our blood, in our bodies, is so vast that it is positively staggering. The human heart beats about 100,000 times every 24 hours. Consider the fact that the heart and its pumping system, which scientists have attempted to duplicate without success, pump 6 quarts of blood through over 96,000 miles of blood vessels. This is an equivalent of 6,300 gallons being pumped per day. That is almost 115 million gallons in only 50 years. The 6 quarts of blood are made up of over 24 trillion cells that make 3,000 to 5,000 trips throughout the body every day. 7 million new blood cells are produced every second. This pumping system has the capability of working non-stop for decades without skipping a beat. And this is only the circulatory system. Consider the heat this machine must generate in accomplishing these functions, yet realize that it maintains a constant temperature of around 98.6 degrees. The biggest organ of the body, the skin, is made up of over 4 million pores that are constantly acting as the cooling system for this machine. The digestive and metabolic systems have the remarkable ability to transform the food we eat into healthy blood, bone, and cell structure. Perfect balance is always maintained, and if it were off by only a small fraction, the balance would be destroyed. The lungs succeed in supplying the blood with the oxygen it needs. A complex skeletal system furnishes a supporting framework to allow the body to stand upright and walk. The skeletal system works in harmony with an amazing muscular system that allows locomotion. This machine can astonishingly reproduce itself. The force and wisdom necessary to turn a fertilized ovum into a fully grown man or woman are beyond our comprehension. The 5 senses alone can stun the intellect. The list of activities performed by your body on a regular basis could fill a book. At the helm of this pinnacle of perfection is the brain, overseeing all these miraculous activities, making sure everything is working with a precision that would make the work of a master watchmaker look clumsy. The brain consists of more than 25 billion cells that are the most highly developed of any known. Looking at an individual cell, you will be even more impressed. A single cell cannot be seen without a microscope, yet what goes on within a cell is astonishing. The wisdom of a single cell is said to exceed all the accumulated knowledge of the human race to date. Even the smallest cell in your body is about 1 billion times the size of its smallest component. The cell is the site of more chemical reactions than all the chemical factories in the world combined. There are thousands of components in a cell: chromosomes, genes, DNA, organelles, mitochondria, enzymes, hormones, amino acids, and thousands of various chemicals and compounds too numerous to mention. And no one on this earth can explain what makes an individual cell operate. All the thousands of different functions can be categorized, but the force behind these functions is beyond our comprehension. In other words, the innate intelligence of the body is infinitely more sophisticated than our thinking minds. And it goes on and on and on. And I got to say, when I read this, I was in awe while I was reading this, and then I felt guilty for taking my body for granted. And even rereading it now, I get goosebumps just thinking about how extraordinary the body is. I mean, I think my computer's pretty cool. I think technology's pretty cool. And it's nowhere near as cool as the human body. Nowhere near. Not even close. And yet, I take it for granted. Not anymore.
And you wonder why I was telling you in the last episode why I fell in love with anatomy and physiology.
Oh.
At the college level, because it's intense. And the anatomy, the dissection alone. My biggest thing is what I think is super, super cool is that as soon as you take like the skin off somebody, we're kind of basically all the same. Honestly.
A little morbid, but yes.
Well, they like the muscles are the same name, and the ligaments are the same name, and the attachments are in the same place, and the liver is supposed to be. I mean, of course, there's anomalies, right?
Yeah.
But that's why they call it an anomaly. So I just was super fascinated about this, and to hear it again is just still puts me in awe. And I've been in this particular field. This stuff is in my brain, and you talk, and it says in there, it's like there's a book that can be about like about all of this, and or just one organ or just one system, and there are that we've had to read them. So super, super cool. Now here's the deal: this book is about food. It's about food combining. It's about eating a certain way to allow for you to get the most out of your cells and your body. So where do we go from here? When do we give them the meat and potatoes? I mean, not now. That. Let's say something else. When do we bring them? When do we give them the bananas and the strawberries?
There you go. Exactly. Right now. Let's start right now. So
okay, let's do it.
Let's start with the first thing that I got from this, and that was the basically the phases of how the body moves through. So you've got an accumulation phase, and I might be getting the names of these phases wrong, but the gist of it's going to be correct. There's going to be a time where your body is accumulating. It's getting food. You're putting food into it. It's bringing it in. Then it steps into the next phase, which is the digestive stage or the assimilation phase, where it takes that food and it digests it, and it takes what it needs from it, and it puts it into the blood and the bones, and it does all the miraculous stuff that we just talked about. And then it goes to the next phase, which is the elimination phase, which is the part where it exits. Now, I want to talk quickly just a little bit about the elimination phase for a minute.
Come on, you don't want to start with the poop phase?
The what?
Poop. The poop
phase. That's the poop. Oh. That is the elimination phase.
Okay, let's do it.
So now, what are we eliminating? The body's eliminating toxins. That's really what it's trying to eliminate. And
waste.
what are toxins? So our body forms, and I learned this from this book, 2 types of toxins. You've got the first type of toxin, which is created basically the off gases or the byproducts of metabolism. So the actual process of digesting your food.
Keeping us alive.
Yes, keeping us alive. So there's a byproduct. That's the normal byproduct that goes, and that would be your normal elimination. The second part is the stuff that doesn't get digested, the stuff that can't be digested. And we'll get into that in a future episode when we talk a little bit more about food combining, but that's the other part of the toxin that needs to get out. Now, here's the thing about toxins. If you cannot eliminate toxins, so if you can't get rid of all the toxins as much as you're creating them, as fast as you're creating them, you're going to store up those toxins. And that storage of toxins is what makes you overweight. That storage of toxins, just like any other toxins, what's going to make you sick, etc. So that was profound to me. It makes complete sense. Now that we've just touched on this, we're going to get into this a little bit more in a future episode, but the 3 phases, you've got your intake, your digestion, and then your output, really. They're separate phases. It's not like you eat food, it goes through a process of digesting and then you eliminate and it's all just happening at the same time. Each of these phases takes energy. And when we are doing certain things, our whole body is based on energy. How many people have gone to a turkey dinner and afterwards you feel completely and utterly exhausted afterwards because you've loaded up on all that turkey dinner? Okay, well, that's because it's not because you're tired, not from chewing the muscles. It's because your body actually is taking all of that energy that it needs to start the digestive process. Now, in the book, they give us an explanation of when those 3 phases are best occurred. So the book that I read is telling me from 4 a.m. until noon is what's called your elimination process. And from noon till 8 p.m. is the time where you're bringing in food, the best time for you to be bringing in food. And then from 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. is the time that you're digesting that food. Now, the other thing
at rest.
At rest.
Yeah,
exactly.
because so people think that sleep is just sleep. No, sleep is repair.
Exactly. Maintenance. It's maintenance.
That's what it's like. I'm going to knock you out so I can get some stuff done.
That's right.
Yep. So that's really important.
It is very important. And one of the big takeaways that I got from this was, because one of the rules that I always had when I was eating healthy and when I was doing things, I wouldn't eat after supper. Once I was done supper, and it was usually around 6 o'clock, I wouldn't have any more food. I wouldn't have anything before I went to bed. And now they're saying anything after 8, right? And that might have to get adjusted based on your schedule, whatever. But the point is that when they explain it, they're saying that when you start to accumulate food, for instance, when you're inside of that digestive process, you're interrupting the digestive process, which is going to take energy away from the actual digestive process. When you take energy away from something, that means that it's going to have to work harder to try and get the same job done, or it's not going to do it as well. And that's really what's happening. So when you eat late, you end up with the indigestion, the heartburn, the nausea, all that kind of stuff. And I've experienced that. I've eaten late, I've eaten the wrong foods, and I've laid down in bed, and all of a sudden I've gotten that acid reflux that starts to come up and what have you. And I've always noticed a pattern that it's when I eat late, when I eat close to bed, and I haven't had to, I just thought it was my stomach was still full and whatever, and maybe it was just ate too hot of a food, or maybe it was just something too spicy, whatever it might have been. I made excuses. But that's really what you're doing, is you're interrupting a stage that your body is naturally going through. And that's really what it's about, right? So that was a big takeaway for me. What do you have to add to this particular part where we have the 3 different stages?
Yeah, I got little things popping in my mind. First of all, like the first stage is actually bringing it into the mouth. Well, the act of chewing, the digestive juices that actually start in the mouth are huge. So chewing your food properly is really important, because everything needs to be broken down as small as you can to allow it to go into the stomach, which is highly acidic. That could burn a hole in the floor. A lot of people don't realize that. And that's not what's creating the heartburn, by the way. That is a misconception that the, let's just say, general public has around what's actually happening when they have heartburn. So yeah, there's a couple other reasons that are not really around the acid or too much acid. But then you've got the small intestine, which, really doesn't want anything coming out of the stomach unless it's been prepared properly, which takes you into the large intestines, which a lot of reabsorption of water and things like that happens. But you have about 14 feet of intestines as an adult. Lay that out around the room and see how much and how important that is. That's an important organ. Like the largest organ in our body is our skin. Well, you know what? They say by weight it's the liver, but by size it's the skin. But 14 feet of intestines? Holy smokes, kind of important to keep those healthy. And all of those different parts of the ascending colon and transverse colon and descending colon, they're all really important. So
before you continue, I want to actually add a little visualization to that.
Oh, Lordy.
So you have 14 feet of intestines, but you're not 14 feet tall or 14 feet wide. Exactly. So there's a lot of turns and bends. So I want you to also imagine being on a road, because we've used the car analogy quite a lot. Yeah. Okay. And imagine being on a road with a lot of hairpin turns. So those are turns that come almost 180 degrees back the other direction on itself. Okay. Mm-hmm. So imagine healthy digestive tract is having a nice limbo or a nice limber car that can make those turns no problem. You're driving this nice little Lotus. It can turn like on a dime and you're making each corner. And your unhealthy diet, you're taking a big rig down that. And every time you make that turn, you got to stop, back it up, try and make it. Oh, no, you got jackknifed. You're stuck. You're bottled up. You're blocked. You can't do it. Okay. I want that visual in your mind. Continue.
Impacted colon is a real thing. People are like, oh, I got diverticulitis and colitis and all these things. Yeah, why? Okay, we digress. One of the things I found very interesting raising children was the conversation around poop. It needs to be an easy conversation. Poop and what your poop. This is gross, you guys. Sorry, you can be grossed out. You may have to pause here, but there are actually, I would recommend that people Google what your poop should look like, because if you look at the pictures on the different, not enough fiber, too much fiber, not enough water, poop is well, my kids are older now and they know better, but it was when my daughter, we didn't realize that she was celiac because there wasn't all the testing, it was kind of still new. And that's real. That's the real official gluten intolerance, besides all the other things that comes with that. But it was a lot of pain for her, a lot of constipation, and a lot of things that I was really just trying to help her figure it out. But we had to learn about poop. We had to learn about it, and I highly recommend, if you don't understand what the elimination process should look like, feel like, how often, too much, too little, I think it's important, and it's not just a thing. It's not just oh, I'm done eating and this is what comes out. No, that actually says a lot about your health. And
very
that's
good.
My whole 2 cents.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Now, what do you want to say about the metabolism part, the actual phase in which you're digesting the food?
Our metabolism slows down as we age.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, especially as Americans, we do not slow down our intake. Definitely something to look at as you and I turn the corners between what we were consuming and getting away with in our 20s, and then our 30s, and then our 40s. And I have taken a new outlook on what I'm doing with my body right now, and it's teaching me a lot. So you people out there that think you know everything, you don't, because now when you're 50, it's not the same as when I was 40, chasing kids around and all that stuff. Then definitely in my 30s when I was, all the different, so it's all different stages in our life, right? And that all changes. So I think it's really important to understand your age, your gender, and what your goals are with your health, because then you can understand how to take the food combining and the calorie intake and make sure if you're wanting to build more muscle, because that's kind of where I am, right? Like, it's really hard to build muscle past the age of 30 because of our hormones changing and all of that stuff. And that's just not women, right? That's men too. They go through a hormone change. They don't want to admit it, but they do all those changes too. And so remaining and keeping muscle as we age is really big for, number one, our metabolism, and number two, our overall health and our strength to be able to do anything. And I don't think it's really talked about in these two books. I'm not really through the second one yet. I don't really remember it being a part of the first book where they break it into macros, but it is important to understand your calorie intake and your metabolism and how much you're burning, so you're not overeating.
Mm-hmm. And this doesn't have to be complicated. There are definitely some tips and tools that you can get from this book that'll make things easier. And as we mentioned in a prior episode, that just taking those small little steps can make a huge difference in your life. And that may lead to more investigation on your part, more effort that you want to put into it, et cetera, and you can start counting your macros and all that kind of thing. But for now, I think that it's, like I said, just take those baby steps. This is a good read. I think that about wraps up this episode. So we will see you guys in the next episode. Stay tuned.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information about the show, as well as our list of current reads, check us out at www.theelevatedtrader.com.
Remember to subscribe and share if you found value in today's episode. See you next week.